Hello everyone, welcome back to another Transformers review. Now as you can see, I'm doing a reissue Transformer. Now the Transformer that this is based on is an Autobot called Stepper. Now he's a targetmaster. It's not quite a reissue, it's more of a recolor and a little slight remold difference from the original G1 Jazz. Now this guy never came out in England whatsoever. To be honest, I think he might well have been a Japan only release when he came out originally. He was originally out in '87, I believe. Now I picked up this reissue, I think it was a while ago. I can't quite remember how long ago, but it was a little while ago, and I had a real bargain because I managed to pick him up for 20 quid, which, to be quite honest, is a complete bargain because I've seen him go for a fair bit more than that, even as the reissue. The original goes for pretty astronomical sort of money, especially if he's sort of boxed and complete. It's the sort of territory where you may as well slit your wrists, and it's that sort of bad money wise. He was one of the only two sort of reissue sort of figures where they rehashed figures but gave them new names and bios. The other one, which there is a picture actually in this paperwork on this box, and I will go through that, is called Artfire, and he is a reissue recolor of the original G1 Inferno figure. And Artfire is even worse to pick up. Now I'm not sure, going by the artwork in this box art, whether or not they've done a reissue version of Artfire, because they do show him in here. Now that would be very interesting, because I'm sure there's an awful lot of G1 fans who would pretty much rush out and buy that figure if they could get it, although it is pretty much just a recolor and, like I say, a targetmaster version of Inferno. It's such a rare beast that I think most fans would go nuts to get one. Anyway, that's enough of me waffling. I'm sure you want to have a look at this. Now I'll go through the box first. As you can see, there's some really nice G1 style artwork on the front there, showing him and his Nebulan partner, whose name escapes me for the minute, but I will find out because we'll go through the book, what's attached to these boxes. I'll give you a flip round so you can see what the box is like. There's the basics of what's included. So you get the figure and his Nebulan, and obviously there's all the instructions and little card they give you, all his accessories and his stickers, and they just give you a little look at some of the other figures they also do as the reissues. Anyway, it's all in Japanese, I should say. Well, I assume it's Japanese and not Chinese, but I can't read it either way, so we'll leave that there. Now, as with all these boxes, they have Velcro sort of holding them, and they open up like a book. Now you do get some more artwork. That's a really nice little picture of him as well there. Such a shame that it's it's all in foreign language. If they'd have released these in English, it would have made things a lot easier and a lot more interesting as well, because we can actually read it. Flicking through, you get a picture. Now this is also another thing, and whether anyone else can tell me, they show a picture of Whirl. Now, as far as I know, they haven't reissued Whirl, but if they have, that's another interesting bot that would be quite nice to pick up as a brand new figure, rather than the sort of damaged and sort of ones where they're missing parts and that, what you often see for sale. So that's an interesting little thing, with one of the mail away Autobots and one of the jump starters there. On this side you've got a nice little sort of image of 4 of the headmasters from the Autobot line. You'll see you've got Chrome Dome, Hardhead, Highbrow and Brainstorm. And then down the bottom you've got the autobot clones, which again, they're all great figures. We'll get round to doing those at some point as well. Now at this point you do get an opening part, and you get almost like an IDW sort of style artwork drawing, but of Minosaur, which is the Stunticons combined. Not quite sure what he's got to do with Stepper, but it's a nice picture anyway. So we'll quickly go past that. Now this is the bit where I was saying, now whether this was just showing you the original toy line figures, I don't know, but that up there is Artfire, and as you can see he's a grey, white and red version of Inferno basically, but with the same target master as the G1 Scourge target master version, which would be, I think it's Fracas on Scourge. Now again, this is a little bit odd, because if they've obviously reused the same target master for him, he alone is a rare beast and quite difficult to find. I have been lucky and I have actually got one of them, so again I've been really lucky to be able to pick up a Fracas, so I've got a target master Scourge effectively. But to find this guy is a real rarity, and he, like I say, he goes for Fort Max sort of prices, where I have seen him boxed for sale. Now I have thought about getting an old Inferno and just doing a bit of a spray job, because to be quite honest, that's pretty much all it is, so I might well do that at some point. Anyway, you can see Stepper underneath there. Is it, I can't remember the names off my head at the moment. I know one Sure Shot. Is it Pinpointer? Or is that the Target Master? Offhand, I'm a bit rusty on some of the names. And of course Crosshairs down the bottom there are the Target Master Autobots. Yeah, again, all nice figures, and you can readily pick up these guys for not too much money. And of course you've got the Counter Punch and Punch, the Autobot Spy down there. You get a little bit more bio, which you can't read because it's all in foreign language, of different, I assume, although they've got the actual titles of the cartoons in English, which is bizarre. So you've got a little bit of a write-up about some of the cartoon line. Going on to the next page, I'll skip on there. You've got again some more of the cartoon write-ups, and actually something there. Could Michael Bay have been watching the G1 cartoons by any chance when he came up with his designs for things like Shockwave's wormy sort of partner in Dark of the Moon? Yeah, it's not like Michael Bay to rip off G1. Skirting past that, you've got a nice picture of Razor Claw there from the Predacons. And next page is a bit more of a write-up actually on the toy of Razor Claw, which again has nothing to do whatsoever with Stepper, so again a little bit odd that they show him. And then you finally get to the bit where they show Stepper, and of course we can't read that either, which is a damn shame, but again a nice spot. Now getting round to the back side, you get to see his actual figure, the actual toy, and his original box, which, if I bring that in, if anyone hasn't seen the original Japanese boxes, that's what he should be sort of packaged as. And yeah, really nice sort of G1 original style box, but obviously with the Japanese Takara sort of writing on it rather than the westernised Transformer logos and that. But yeah, really nice. And of course, as he's already out, you get an empty box as such like that, but they are really nice to display in that way because you can see the figure and you haven't got a dust in, so everything is displayed but without all the hassle. Now he's Nebulan Target Master. Oh, they haven't got it written in there, so I am going to have to try and find. Oh, it's Ricochet. I found it written there. Ricochet is his Target Master. Now we get to an interesting point. This in the pictures is the original, and I'll bring his nebulan in and I'll show it in comparison with this picture. Now that's the original, that is the reissue. Now you'll notice around his groin area, which is an unfortunate place to be pointing, but you'll notice there is a difference between the way that's hinged. Now on the reissue you've got a metal pin going through there, which is done very much like the Autobot original Target Masters, but on the original Decepticon ones they were just two pieces of plastic what acted as a hinge snapped together. Now they were very prone to breaking, which is obviously why when they've reissued him they've done it with the metal pin variety, which is better in that part, you know, for the collector. It's a better nebulan for that sake and that bit of re-engineering. But it's worth noting the difference there, because obviously with these things around, if somebody was trying to palm that off as an original, it's not. It's clearly different now, so it's worth watching. If you was trying to pick up an original part, if you were lucky enough to get an original stepper, you've really got to watch that sort of thing, because obviously someone else unscrupulous might try and sell you the wrong thing. Anyway, I'll get the box closed up into the back, because you're not really here to look at boxes, and I'll show you what you get inside now. I won't bother opening it all up, but you do of course get his instructions and a sticker sheet, which is pretty much standard stuff. Not really worth taking that out, because again it's all in foreign language, unless of course you're Japanese or Chinese, whichever it's written in which case you can probably read that. You always get with these reissues a nice little character card, which again is a nice little thing. I suppose if you had a card collecting sort of catalogue, you could sort of put them all in and have them all as a little sort of almost like a collecting card, you know, sort of little collection in a folder. If that isn't complete gibberish I've just come out with. But yeah, it's got these strips and everything along the bottom there, which again we can't tell which is which because oh yeah, it's in a foreign language. Again, bit of a shame, but nice little card anyway for its own sake. Now we get down to the nitty gritty. Now I've already shown you Ricochet, he's nebulan. Pretty much again as an original version, but again as I say, different hinging and better for it. I'll put him down and out of the way for a second. You do get the original Jazz weapons. As I say, this is a recolour effectively of G1 Jazz. So you get his shoulder mounted rocket launcher, but rather than silver and black, he's gold and black, which is again a nice feature. I do believe this would actually fire the missiles, but I haven't bothered taking them off the sprue, and don't really want to be honest, as I'm trying to keep this guy more minty. But again, they've redone Jazz's original weapons, but in gold rather than silver. So again, nice, but I do think that would fire. It has got a spring in there, so it must work. Again, you get a standard rifle or pistol, whichever you want to class it as. But again, they've chromed it gold rather than silver from the original G1 Jazz style one. So again, that's a nice little touch, and really nice chrome job on them as well. Really nice. And you get, which you don't get with Jazz, as with the Nebulan, you get a mount. Now that acts as the shoulder mounted rocket launcher sort of mount, but it does mean that you can mount Ricochet on him as well. So that is a bit different from the G1 Jazz and a completely separate part. So put that down there as well. Now getting to the actual main crux of the thing, this is Stepper, and it is of course modelled on a Porsche from the 80s, I assume. Probably the 911, but more of a racing one with a great big whale tail. Now in this mode, pretty much a reissue of Jazz, as I say, but in a different colour. But the main moulding difference, and it is pretty much the only moulding difference on this guy, is on the back there you've got a port so you can actually fit the Nebulan on Now obviously G1 Jazz didn't have a nebulan, so that's different. That's the only part as such what is a different remold. Now I'll show you what that's like. You just fold the nebulan over, as you no doubt know with these sort of things by now. Pretty chunky little gun, and that just mounts into the back there, like so, and that means he's got an armed car sort of version. Yeah, it's okay, not exactly aerodynamic, but it sort of works, so yeah, okay, I can live with that. You will also notice, actually, as I bring Ricochet back up, his actual grip, where he actually fits in to the socket for actually the weapon mode, you'll notice he's got a stepped sort of part there. Now that smaller part of the peg actually allows him to be held in Stepper's hands, they call him Ricochet, so you can actually hold him as a handheld weapon as well as actually holding, having Ricochet as a shoulder mounted weapon. So again, we'll get to that in a second. Now just bring the camera down so you get a bit more better view as I do the transformation. Now I'll do this quite quick because, as I say, most people are familiar with G1 Jazz, so transformation is absolutely identical. Pulling back on the back of the car, flip it round, separate it slightly to give it some sort of definition as feet. It should actually come apart, there we go, better than that, like so. You then move around to the front and you've got these two gold bits which would normally on Jazz be silver, and they flick up to become his feet and his sort of shins. Again, really nicely chromed. You'll notice quite a lot of colour difference there to Jazz, as with, well, all these sticker applications all being in a chromed gold sort of sticker detail, and of course he's got gold rims now instead of silver ones. For the front of the car, you just need to open the doors, pull back on the windscreen, and that's always the weak point on this mould, because with Jazz you always used to split across there, and that used to ruin the car because you had no roof. You've then got to unpeg the hands from there, and you can then freely swing them out to the side, which brings his wheels up to the top. You then just need to sort of tidy up the arms, which basically is just swinging them round into the right position, and then from that you then need to tip this gold section forward so that it sits to the front, and then you swing up and down on the front of the car, so then it forms his chest, and then just swing the head up. It's just a little matter of tidying that up and getting it into the right positions, and there you've got Stepper. Bring the doors out as well, give him this sort of wing style sort of look. Yeah, so there's the basic figure, which again, as I say, is pretty much, push these feet together, is pretty much G1 Jazz but with a recolour. Same moulding, head mould, sculpt, everything is pretty much the same. But yeah, really nice. Some nice sticker details, which again is really nice. It takes me back to my youth to actually put sticker details back on rather than them all just being paint apps. Some do come factory applied, as with the original Transformers, but yeah, it's always fun to have a go at putting some on. Can be a bit infuriating, but I'm sure everyone from the G1 days will remember the pleasure of putting them on. Anyway, getting back to giving this guy all these accessories. As with G1 Jazz, you can just push his shoulder mounted weapons onto the back like so, and that just fitted over his shoulder like that. And of course you could then put the rockets inside. Now the difference, as I said, was with this guy, you can do it with this part, and it goes in exactly the same way, and find the right position to put it in at. and it just goes either side of that sort of bit that can be damaged. It is a bit fiddly, so I would suggest a little bit of caution as you do it, because obviously you don't want to damage this figure. They just sort of sit between these two white parts behind his shoulders there, and it sort of just sits there. Now with it in that mode, you can take Ricochet and just pop it into the hole on the top of that, and he becomes a shoulder mounted nebulan, which is different from all of the other target masters. They never used to be able to fit them on anywhere else. It was just standard handheld sort of weaponry, and it actually does work better in that mode. A lot of the nebulans in vehicle mode and in handheld weapon mode look very clumsy, very sort of chunky in the hand. I will show you that in a sec, but obviously because he's got it on his shoulder, he can actually use like the standard jazz handheld weapon, and that actually looks much better. Now, as I say, I should just pop off Ricochet, and like I say, because of the narrow sort of peg part there, you can actually pop him into the hand on the robot, but because of the weight, you don't want to stay there. A little bit of playing around him might, if you bend it at the elbow, will he stay? No, kind of. It's not the best, and as you see, exactly my point, that's a chunky old weapon to be carrying around, so he actually looks better as the shoulder mounted weapon. But as I say, this is a reissue of a pretty rare figure by any sort of means. To find an original stepper would sort of like be a struggle for most people, so picking up this reissue is a real sort of bargain basement way of getting a really rare figure. I would highly recommend, even though he is really just a recolour of G1 Jazz, he's different enough with the Nebulan and the slight mould differences, and I really do like the colour scheme on this guy. He's totally different sort of, I don't know quite how to put it, totally different sort of vibe from Jazz. Jazz was an out and out sort of showy sort of race car sort of styling, where this guy with the sort of flame effects, you could imagine him being a real sort of hothead, almost along the lines of Hot Rod, with the sort of styling of the chest sticker there. Really do like this figure, and can't recommend it enough really, because he's got that classic G1 style, the classic G1 transformation. He's still die-cast metal, he's not sort of been sort of cut back and they've used plastic instead. This chest section is all still cast metal, as is the rear section, so he's a nice weight. If I bring it in so you can get a bit more of a look about him before I finish the review, really nice and well worth what I paid for him. I mean, he is worth what he goes for normally, which is a fair bit more than that. You're looking more about the £40 mark for him, so a great pickup, and like I say, one I'd really recommend to anybody. Anyway, that's enough waffling for me, and I'm sure you've probably been watching this for long enough, so I shall say thanks for watching. And this was really done for Action Jackman Luke, who'd asked if I did have any of the later Target Masters. I wasn't sure which ones he meant at first, but as soon as he said Stepper or Artfire, I knew exactly who he meant. But yeah, I've done this one for Luke. Hope he's enjoyed it, and like I say, if you see one going cheap or for at least a reasonable amount, definitely pick it up. Anyway, that's it for Stepper. Thanks for watching, and please feel free to comment or subscribe, and I shall see you again for another Transformers review. Thanks for watching.